More bad news out of the Midwest. We had another Hawker jet crash after the pilots attempted to conduct a series of stall checks at 15,000 feet. I have over 3,000 hours in a Hawker aircraft myself, and I've conducted those same stall checks multiple times. It appears, and we won't know for a while, that the pilots entered a deep stall from which they could not recover. I operated Hawker jets as a captain for over a decade. In a deep stall, the elevator and rudders are rendered completely ineffective by turbulent air and making stall recovery impossible. For this reason, Hawkers have a stick shaker and a stick pusher. These were the weather conditions at the time of the accident. The accident occurred October 16th, 2025. The registration was XAJMR, Mexican registration. 3 were killed, the third likely being the mechanic. There have been 3 documented cases where these stall checks resulted in accidents. The first accident occurred in September 2003 in Houston, Texas, in a Hawker 700. They had commenced the checks 10,000 feet lower than they should have. The second accident occurred in Utah just 20 months ago, and that one killed 2. The third accident occurred just a couple days ago involving another Hawker, but this one claimed the lives of 3. Here's what a stall functionality test looks like on the ground.
It's going to get a little loud, so bear with me here, but here we go. There it goes. All right.
Do you think any Hawker pilot knows the actual duration between stick shaker and stick pusher? Absolutely not, and they're not expected to, because it varies. Why would it vary? Because the rate of angle of attack increase will determine the time duration between stick shaker and stick pusher. You may be asking yourself, why are Hawker pilots having to do stall checks in the actual aircraft? You have simulators for that, right? Well, that's true, but a Hawker is not like any other aircraft. Unlike most jet aircraft, Hawkers have wet wings. That is, they utilize TKS fluid to keep ice off the leading edge of the wings, provided they are flying at the appropriate speeds. Someone might ask, why doesn't the Hawker have a hot wing like most other jets? Well, the answer is you have to have enough bleed air, that is, bypass air that's bled from the engines, to provide that protection, and there's just not enough produced from the engines to provide it. So, every 4 years, the aircraft's leading edges have to be removed, checked and inspected and serviced, and then reattached to the aircraft. Because they were removed, that reattachment requires conducting a series of stall tests to verify that the stall warning system works appropriately. When we are talking about stall tests, we are not talking about doing actual stalls like small general aviation aircraft. We are talking about the functionality of stall detection equipment. I'll be honest, I was never more nervous flying a Hawker than when I had to conduct stall checks. When approaching a stall, the stick shaker will activate initially. Then 2 warning lights appear when the pusher activates. The stick shaker is electric, while the stick pusher is hydraulic. For 11 seconds, the stick shaker was ignored. That's not done ever. In training, we are trained to recover immediately at stick shaker. There is a recurring problem that keeps happening with these Hawker accidents, and I'll tell you what I think part of the problem is. In training, Hawker pilots only train to stick shaker before commencing recovery, never to stick pusher. Why? Because it's about stall avoidance altogether. Why? Because the characteristics of a Hawker are bad enough that they want you to avoid getting anywhere near an actual stall. In training, particularly recurrent training in the simulator, we are taught to recover immediately upon the first indication of stick shaker. But that's not what's happening in this video either. They are ignoring their own training and continuing to fly and entering actual stalls. That's not something they even practice in the simulator. Some of you might ask, well, if you have a stick pusher, why wouldn't you train to stick pusher? Well, I'll give you the answer. Part of it is the way the training regimen is written and approved by the FAA. Aircraft such as the Hawker that have such terrible actual stall recovery characteristics do not warrant training to stick pusher because their characteristics are just that bad. It's about avoidance altogether. Here's the actual recording. Take a look at the altitude and notice how quickly it goes down. These pilots are in trouble.
X-ray Alpha Juliet, Mike Romeo, Cleveland.
We are in the stall recovery, sir. Stall recovery, sorry.
X-ray Alpha Juliet, Mike Romeo, Cleveland Center, stay altitude.
Until Hawker pilots are actually trained in the behavioral characteristics of Hawkers by experiencing stick pushers in the simulator, they need to stop trying to experience them in the actual aircraft, since they only train to stick shaker. According to Hawker flight manuals and simulator training programs at CAE and FlightSafety, crews are trained to initiate stall recovery at the shaker, not to allow the pusher to activate. The pusher is considered a last resort protection. So we have a trifecta of problems. Number one, pilots are ignoring their training. During training, they are trained to recover immediately at the first indication of stick shaker. Well, that's not happening. They're continuing to try and hand fly the aircraft beyond stick shaker. Here are some pilots in a Hawker 800 XP simulator. It's almost unbelievable that in this day and age, pilots are still being required to perform stall checks in the actual aircraft. There is no other aircraft I have ever flown, Boeing, Learjet, or otherwise, where I've had to do that. The second problem is FAA guidance. The FAA has been treating the Hawker like any other jet aircraft, but it's not like any other jet aircraft. It has wet wings. It doesn't have hot wings like most other jet aircraft. And until they change the guidance and stop treating it like every other jet aircraft, people are going to continue to get killed. Here is a time-lapse clip of the removal of the leading edges of Hawker wings in addition to the inspection of many other items during a 4-year, 48-month check. And number three, industry practices. There is no other corporate jet in which the pilots have to take up the actual aircraft to do stall checks. If you're going to mandate that pilots actually perform this type of check, then you have to change the training in order to prepare them accordingly. They are not receiving that training. They are being treated like every other pilot who doesn't have to do them at all. And that's not okay. This is a simulation of how the aircraft might have behaved after entering a deep stall. Unlike the simulation, in most deep stalls, it will be impossible to lower the nose. It will remain relatively in the same fixed position.
We are in the stall recovery, sir. Stall recovery, sorry.
X-ray Alpha Juliet, Mike Romeo, Cleveland Center, stay altitude.
When I did the tests myself,
X-ray Alpha Juliet, Mike Romeo, Cleveland Center.
I always recovered
X-ray Alpha Juliet, Mike Romeo, Cleveland Center, how do you read?
at stick shaker.
X-ray Alpha Juliet, Mike Romeo, Cleveland Center.
One way of determining whether they initiated recovery quickly will be determining the amount of time that the stick shaker was active on the CVR recording.
Can you look at your 1 o'clock and about 20 miles? We're looking for an aircraft. You see if you see anything out there on the ground.
These stall checks are done, flaps up and flaps down.
Yeah, well, I think we would.
The aircraft is more docile, flaps down, than with flaps up. One final comment in deference to these pilots and their families. They may have done everything right. They may have encountered a stall. There may not have been normal functionality of the stall warning system, or it might have been something else. We're just going to have to wait and see. If you like this video, let me know. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.